Hello and welcome to Budget Model Railways, and today we're back with my presentation box layout. There's all sorts of things I could call this layout actually, because it's been built for a couple of different projects, so it's really part of the shelf challenge. So if you haven't seen that, have a look at the videos. That's using a standard 60 by 23 centimetre floating shelf. You can get them from places like Home Bargains for about £5. I think Wicks have got them at about 13. And the idea originally came, I saw somebody building a challenge using a pre-built laser cut plywood baseboard that was about £30. And I thought, I'm sure we can do this cheaper. So I actually bought a £13 one because that's less than half. And then somebody put me onto the Home Bargains ones, which are only a fiver. There is, if you go on our YouTube channel, go on our website and you'll find a link for the challenge that explains about the criteria, and it's also got loads of wonderful photos of layouts that people have built for the challenge. And I also wanted to do, as always with my layouts, I always want to try and tick 2 or 3 boxes. So with this one I wanted to do a little passing loop, a little passing country halt, rather than the sort of shunting layouts, the Inglenooks I've built in the past. It is freelance. It's not really meant to be anywhere in particular. I just use what I've got available. And I also wanted to experiment with this. So if I turn it off, it shows you the difference. So what I've got in here is one of these. I'm guessing it's like an LED fluorescent tube thing. My son put them in our old kitchen for us. And when we got a new kitchen, these were lying around, and by chance they're exactly that length. So this is something myself and Matthew from Something have seen at quite a few exhibitions, which is where you have a box, we'll have a lid on it, and you have the lighting hidden. So it's a complete thing, and it works really well. And then obviously the other objective of this is to make this as a sealed box with a handle on the top. If I scout around, there we go. I've got a handle here, which is going to live on the top. And this then is going to hopefully be carried across the pillion of my motorbike. It's relatively short, not very heavy. I'll find a way of doing probably a weatherproof bag for it. So the idea is to make it meet several criteria. And it's a nice little layout in its own right. So that's a bit about why it was built. Let's have a little bit about how it was built. So the hills and whatever are just built using this. This is foam packaging. Doug gets a lot of his 3D printers and electric stuff in it. The advantage of it is, if I get a small piece, I can show you. The advantage of it is it cuts quite easily. You can cut it with a pair of heavy duty scissors. Makes very little mess, so it's not like polystyrene. And simply by using a knife and scissors, you can sculpt this into effectively whatever shape you want, big pieces and little pieces. So that's how the big hill in the background has been made, the low pieces, and it's also how the rock face, the base of the rock face was built. See if we can zoom in a bit here. Now, I was quite pleased with the way that came out. So it's got the foam behind it. And then I used this. This came again, I think, from one of the DIY stores. It's great for what it was made for, which is filling walls indoors. It's too runny to do really nice hills. You need the better, I guess probably cheaper premix that are a bit thicker. However, what I realised after I'd got a thin coat on is around the edge of the tub is all these dry bits. And what I effectively did was flaked the dry bits off and just pushed them against the wet filler. And I've ended up with this really nice effect. You also get a bit of grain off of the foam. Now, all I've done with this is some model paint that I had lying around, cheap model paint. Actually, it works. It's much better and cheaper if you haven't got model paint to use emulsion. Just use an emulsion tester pot. Use quite a light colour, because what you're going to do is you're going to black wash it. So once it's dry, you just wash over it with a black wash, which gives you the depth. And then you go over it later with a dry brush to prick the highlights out. And actually, in this case, I used a beige rather than light grey to give it a bit more tonal depth. There are loads of videos, so I'm not going to spend hours and hours here, because if you're interested how I did this, go back through our videos and you'll find there's at least 2 or 3. But this isn't of how I've done this, but this is a new one in so much I've just stuck the bits of rock on, which work quite well on the vertical. The grass is again done, and there are several videos. I'm just trying to, there we go. There are several videos on this that I've made. Effectively, I now do a one bit does all kind of technique. So what I used to do is paint it, let it dry, glue it, let the scatter dry. So I use loose scatter. This is cheap stuff from AliExpress, which is much cheaper than buying it in the UK. I would then let that dry, and I would then use a puffer bottle to do static grass. I now don't. I do it all in one go. So what I do is, we've lost a bit of focus there. There we go. What I do is I paint it. While it's dry, I put the PVA on, which is something an art student actually gave me the idea, what you can colour your PVA. I then put the scatter on. While the scatter is wet, I use a water spray and diluted PVA. And on top of that, I then shake the static grass and I then leave it to dry. And it works really well. It's much quicker. It's a bit cold out in the shed here, so I tend to have to go and put it in the airing cupboard to dry it quickly, but it works very well. Now, I then had this kind of lumpy stuff, which you can buy. There we go. It's like a coarse lump. However, that's relatively expensive compared to the big bag of stuff that I got again from AliExpress. And what I've done is I've used that on neat PVA, and then with diluted PVA when it's semi-dried to do the edges there, and to do the kind of undergrowth at the ends of the platform. I'm also I've got a bit of a gap where I've done the hedge. Now the hedge was done just using, this is already cut up, nylon pan scourers that you can get from a pound shop. And again, you just dip it, cover it in PVA, dip it in scatter, and away it goes. But I've got a bit more of a gap at the bottom than I like. And so what I'm doing now is using some PVA and just filling that gap in. Now the trees are just really cheap trees, bought again from China. They are a bit artificial looking, and what I've done is again a mixture of scatter and lumpy scatter stuck on the trees, which makes them look really good. And I then cut the backs off a couple of trees so that I can do half relief. I've got one here I can show you. Front, back. Just cut the tree off. Do it out there somewhere so you can see. I'm going to have to do a second low relief tree because somehow I've got a mark you can see on the back scene there, so I'll put one in there. But it works quite well and gives quite nice looking trees. Now the road here, that is just done on this mounting board. It's what picture framers use. I buy it cheap from a picture framers in Chandler's Ford. I've then painted it. I didn't have the colour I wanted, so this time I used some fairly cheap artist acrylic. You let it dry, then you black wash it and dry brush it. Now I do need to do a video on this, so what I'm going to do, I'll try and do it before Christmas. I'll paint some test pieces and I'll show you the different stages of how it's done. But it is ridiculously simple. You literally paint it a colour, let it dry, black wash it, let it dry, dry brush it. No need for expensive commercial sheets. You can pick out the colour. It works really well on concrete. So if you do it a light grey, it works exceptionally well. I'm just going to risk taking the camera off here. I don't know if this will come out. So this is my Japanese layout. That's the concrete base for the goods yard. And that's done in exactly the same way. Very, very dark grey, and same technique, gives you very nice tarmac roads. The buildings, I just got somewhere, I think I bought them at an exhibition. This one was already pre-painted. This is, I believe, a Fowler one. I have repainted it. So I've painted the timber and black washed it. I've painted the roofs and black washed it. I've done the same with the brick. It does take the plastic look off of them quite nicely. The really great thing about doing freelance, this is some Japanese Kato fencing that I got relatively cheap. This is a Pico crossing there. Cut the lights off and turn them around the other way so it's not UK side. Because although this is freelance, I think it's probably not very UK looking. But the layout is to run the freelance Kato stuff, the pocket line stuff. That's the trams, and obviously they do the exceptional steeple cab locos as well. So I have got to put cantenary on this, and I must actually remember to do that because I keep forgetting that I need to do that. I'm just looking around now to see if I can see the box of them, but I can't. I tend to forget things, and if I could see the box now, I could put it here and I'd remember to do it. That's going to be fun because it means hunting all through. I thought I'd found them. Anyway, somewhere I have a box full of the masts, and I can paint those up and put them on, and that'll just give it quite a nice feel. So not a complicated layout. I think it looks quite nice. I think it's built to a high standard. I quite often get people say, look, I don't have the skills. There really is no skill in this. You know, a lot of the things I do, it's the first time I've done them and they still work. So if you think you haven't got the skills, go back through my videos and have a look. And the advantage on these smaller layouts, lost my focus a bit again, is that it's small enough that you can have a go. It doesn't really matter. There's a lot of detail work I've got to do to lift it, but it's come on quite quickly. I build by doing 10 minutes here, half an hour there. I don't very often get 2 or 3 hours where I sit and build. And I think that's another thing that holds people back. And it's another advantage of the small layouts. They're not in somebody's way if they live on a desk or something like that while you build them. You got 10 minutes, 15 minutes, put some fences on, paint something, put a bit of scatter on. Next time you get half an hour, come back. And you'll be surprised doing that, how quickly a layout builds. If you say, I'm only going to build when I get an hour or 2 hours, yeah, you're never going to get that in a modern busy world. And then over the back there, you can see the tram basically just disappearing. And that works really well. I get a bit of shadow, unfortunately, there, which I'm going to probably put a light over the back to try and take that out. Yeah, I haven't got a torch down here I can try with, but I think that'll get rid of that shadow edge. And then it really does just disappear through the trees in the back scene. So I'm pleased with that. So it's coming along quite nicely. Some interesting techniques there. If you want more details on how I do these things, there are videos on all of it in my channel. So please go back and have a look. But it's going to tick lots of boxes, this one. I've seen some really great oval layouts as part of the challenge, so I'm pleased I've managed to build one. This is only, as I say, 23 centimetres wide. The track is very tight. It's only about 20 centimetre radius. Done with flexi track, but the Kato pocket line stuff will go around it. You could use the Kato track, the very, very small as well, of course, if you wanted. I just happen to have quite a lot of very cheap Pico flexi track lying around that I got second hand. So there we go. Very happy with the way the layouts come out. Lots of little detailing to do. I've got cars and people and trucks and things to put in there to lift it. And then I'm going to have fun seeing how we get. This board I put on the top is temporary. It's actually going to be the bit of board for the front there. So I've got to find some wood to make the sides, and then we'll have some fun seeing how it fits on the motorbike. I want to do a posher surround, probably from a bit of ply, cut to shape with some rounded edges. But I'm very pleased that it's worked out well with the light and everything. It's just a nice little layout. And because there's a 2-road fiddle yard out the back, operationally I can hold a passenger train in here, or I can hold a freight train in here, and then I can run a couple of other trains round. It is actually possible to hold a long freight in here, the tram over the back, and the Kato steam train set over the back. That one. So it'll be possible to actually alternate 3 different trains through there, 3 different consists, so there's quite a lot of operational interest as well. It's not just a novelty layout. I've got nothing against some of the micro ovals in cases and things, but to me they're novelties. The idea of this is that it's a working model railway. So next time you think you haven't got room for a model railway, 60 centimetres by 23 centimetres, have a think, with a fiddle yard out the back. I think that's probably enough from me. I'll just let it run round once more, and I'll do updates when I've done a bit more work on it.